Brings me into the topic for today, which is high-performance relationship building in the luxury real estate industry. Just a little bit of background, so hopefully I give you some reasons to believe why what we're doing, what we're recommending today, may be valuable to you, that you'll make up your own mind. We've been around for 12 years. We've worked for over 1,100 luxury brands. We do a lot of research, a lot of consulting in dozens of luxury categories. But the most important part of our business, as Jeanette said, has been high-performance client relationships. After 2008, when the luxury industry was desperate, really, a lot of our clients came to us and said, well, you have Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons and Nordstrom and Lexus as your clients. Stop being the scorekeeper of the luxury industry and come and teach us how to play. So we had to transform our business model at the behest of our clients. One of the first clients was Bottega Veneta. How many of you have heard of Bottega Veneta? And we were very fortunate. They would really have been the fastest growing and the most profitable, except for Hermes brand in the last 10 years. And we helped them to transform their culture of their salespeople from being what we call passive transactors to humanistic relationship builders. And that's really the topic for today. In the 21st century, it's extremely difficult to differentiate yourself on product. There are many handbag manufacturers, many hotel companies, many of everything, including real estate companies. So not only do you need to be call it a great professional, but you also need to be a master builder of long-term client relationships. And that's what we believe can set you apart from the competition. But we also believe, and we've seen in the great companies, is in order to be a master client relationship builder, you have to significantly outperform your competition. That is, your product has to be great. But that's not enough. You can be an expert. You need to be a neurosurgeon at what you do today, or you won't have credibility, especially with your demanding clients. But we also believe that you need to dramatically outbehave your competition. And a lot of you said it. It's about being trustworthy. It's about them knowing that you are serving their interests as well as you're serving your own. They expect you're going to serve your own interests. But are you serving their interests in their way? It was interesting. The other day we had a conference with Four Seasons, and the theme of that presentation was, show me, you know me. And that's absolutely critical. The other piece that I think is underrated is generosity, kindness. How do you go out of your way to demonstrate that you care about people? So not only do you need to outperform, be an expert, a neurosurgeon at what you do, you need to dramatically outbehave your competition, because there's so much good product out there and so many good experts out there. It's interesting to say that in today's world, there are so many great violin virtuosos and pianist virtuosos and opera virtuosos. The level, the standard of being a peak performer has been reached by many people. It's sort of the ubiquity of excellence that many people in athletics, in business, become peak performers. So you've got to be even better. And the only way to differentiate yourself, we believe, is the human side. Because on the performance side, you're going to have to be, that's just the cost of entry. You're going to have to outperform, but you need to dramatically outbehave. One of the things that really differentiates the top performers is humility. When you talk to Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, or Meg Whitman, now at Hewlett-Packard, formerly the CEO of eBay, they will tell you that they have remained teachable, open-minded, despite the fact that they know it all. They've been there, done that. They remain teachable and coachable. And humility is one of the great characteristics of peak performers. It's one thing to be a high performer, but to be a peak performer, you've got to have the humility to know that you don't know everything, and that as great as you are, you often fail at what you do. And in fact, Jim Collins, who wrote the book Built to Last and Good to Great, who's a researcher and an author, and looks not only for high performance, but sustainability of that high performance over long periods of time, will tell you that humility is that X factor, that special ingredient of peak performers. There's a gentleman named Dr. Atul Gawande. He's a Harvard surgeon and an author. He writes for the New Yorker magazine. If you Google Gawande, Gawande, you'll see a lot of his videos. He's a surgeon who studies high performance, particularly in medicine. And this is essentially a quote from Atul Gawande, who says that in the 21st century, even the best performers often fail. And he's talking primarily in medicine and in other fields, in business as well, not due to the fact that you don't know what the best practices are. Right? We know how to really address a lot of diseases, a lot of medical issues, a lot of problems that occur in business. But it's really the failure to execute those best practices consistently, that is, over and over and over again, not just one or a few times, or to do it correctly, or to do it at all. So one of the things I'd like to say is that there's so much knowledge out here, and you have a lot of that collective knowledge, but the failure to execute when it really matters, when I'm engaging Mary Lou one-on-one, that really differentiates the peak performers in medicine, the peak performers in aviation, from the, let's just say, top performers. So let me give you my recommendations, and I will tell you that those recommendations come from working with the sales forces of top brands. We helped Bottega Veneta to double their sales in 3 years and build their culture. We helped Intermix, another company, double their sales before they were sold to the Gap. We've helped, how many of you are familiar with St. John's in Irvine? Obviously, because they're on the West Coast. I think many of us would say that St. John was left for dead by many people. If you look in Women's Wear Daily, last week I believe it was, the CEO said that their sales are in double digits. And we've worked with them and really using a lot of these practices that I'm going to recommend to you today to get those double-digit sales. We said to them, in a very brutally honest way, Mary Lou, you fix the product and we'll work with the sales team. And together we're bringing that brand, which is Golden Coast Glamour, and one of the few true American luxury brands, to a much higher level of performance. My first recommendation, forgive me, is that experience becomes obsolete. So you have to develop expertise continuously. This morning we were addressing the top 34 agents in the system in a special session, in a breakout session, where they were giving us ideas, collective ideas. And it was really fascinating. I've interviewed several of you, and it was fascinating to hear the kinds of skills that they feel they need to gain now, even as good as they are, such as marketing a property using digital assets, such as perhaps becoming very good at creating videos so that they can create video blogs and put those videos out to gain new clients. One of the agents said they had 3 listings as a result of creating video interviews where one of his people interviews him and they put those videos out there. Or learning to use social media. When I had interviewed one of the people in Baltimore, she had told me that she had hired someone to help her use social media in order to bring in listings and get closings. So lots of different things. And the reason I say that is in the medical field, again, many doctors who have 20, 30, 40 years of experience are today no longer as good at deciphering what an MRI or a CAT scan says than a young intern. You look at Danica Patrick. She is a world-class car racer. The rest of us have experience, but she has expertise. It's that desire to constantly improve and to gain and use the knowledge that is the state of the art. And so the first recommendation is really personal development. Don't be afraid to jump in, to step in to new ideas, new concepts. The second recommendation, and we heard it over and over this morning, a lot of the agents said, you know what, I know what to do, but I'm so busy during the day and my people are so busy that sometimes I need a process. I need a system. And whether it's in sports or in medicine, and I'm about to show you an example, having a little system for whatever you do matters. But for building relationships, you need a system, and I'll share with you some of the methodologies. Because as much as we think of relationship building as sort of an ad hoc, mushy, emotional kind of process, there are components to building relationships. Let me give you the results first, okay? By using this little system, and a system is basically a set of inputs and a set of outputs, but also measurable. You have what they call feedback loops, right? It's that simple. It's a procedure, it's a process. Now, in the medical field, as I told you before, there's a lot of mistakes that occur in the operating room. And so Dr. Atul Gawande and the World Health Organization decided that they would create a system learned basically from aviation and based on a simple checklist. So that before you start any surgery in the operating room, you go through this basic checklist. Now, a lot of people think that a checklist is a to-do, like do this, do that, and after that, do this, do this, do this, right? It is not. It is really a set of questions, a way to anticipate that something might go wrong. I think it's Brad back there. Is it Brad? I knew that Brad was a pro because of the way he got me on board today, but I knew he was a real pro at anticipating problems because he said, you know what? I'm putting that microphone over there in case something goes wrong with your lavalier, right? That's the kind of anticipation you need in the hospital when somebody might be allergic or somebody might have a condition that when you go through, you're going to have a potential error. It was really funny because, as you can see from that data, the hospital complications have been reduced by 35%, that is errors, and deaths reduced by 45% by using that simple system. I went in for a procedure the other day, and my anesthesiologist sits with me before I go through the procedure, before they put me under. It was on Friday, and he said to me, and don't worry, the chances of infection are only 1%. Right? And I said, doctor, I know it's more than 1%. It's probably 6% from what I remember reading from Atul Gawande. But doctor, you are so good that you're going to do your damnness to mitigate that risk down to 0.0001, aren't you, doctor? And I called him out on it in a nice way. I was polite. My point is that he had the power in the system to reduce that error to almost zero. And by the way, those numbers are not numbers for Botswana or a little clinic in Guatemala. Those are the major cities of the United States. Harvard surgeons and MIT and Stanford surgeons still fail. And when they fail, this is serious stuff. This is our loved ones. And it was really funny, right? Because you say, what, a simple checklist? Come on. You know, I'm from Harvard. Are you kidding me? When they asked the surgeons whether they liked using the checklist, 24% said, I hate it. It's a process I can do without. But then they asked them a different question, which was, if you or your loved ones are going to go into surgery, would you like that checklist to be used by the team that is going to perform the operation? And 94% of them said, absolutely. So what the heck does that have to do with luxury real estate, right? Well, this morning we heard from a lot of the agents that they're so busy sometimes that they forget, for example, to call the previous clients, the clients that they've had, because there's a long purchase cycle, right? So they forget to nurture those relationships. And then they realize that the listing was given to somebody else. And they feel betrayed. They don't understand why. But a checklist might help you remember that you've got a timetable during which you're going to nurture and cultivate those relationships, even though they may have a 3-year cycle, a 5-year cycle, or you're going to get referrals. So that kind of a little process, a little system, is what makes the great performers become peak performers. And you are great performers, but can you use some of these simple processes to make sure that you achieve a higher level of performance, and that while you are running crazy, that you're looking at that checklist, or more importantly, your team is looking at that checklist and saying, okay, this is how our closing works, but we've got an exception here for Mr. Jones. Now let's go through it and let's make sure that we anticipate and we execute brilliantly to make sure that we are efficient and effective and we create a great client experience. Frankly, when we recommended it to our clients, they rebelled. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. It's measure yourself and your team not on dollars, but on client relationship metrics daily. Client relationship metrics, right? And it was interesting. So in the world of performance, there's usually a bell curve. I think you guys know what a bell curve is, right? You have the low performers here. The fat middle is made up of the 60-70% people who are average, and then the people who are the top performers are here. Very few of those, right? They're the 20% of the people who bring in 80% of the sales, as you are. And when we recommended this daily metrics process to one of our clients, the trainer said the top salespeople are offended. They think this is, bullshit. And they don't want to do it because they've been doing things their way for years. And so we were a little worried. But we know that, by now we know that it takes 2 months of chaos before people get it, and then they realize they're getting great results. So there's a gestation period. But it wasn't true. 2 weeks later, we had the meeting with the entire sales team. And what turned out was really fascinating. And this happens in medicine and many other fields, where the top performers are actually the ones who embrace this and get far better. So we had $1 million producer, a guy in retail with $1 million in selling handbags is a lot. This guy has gone on to $1.5 million and is going to $2 million because he embraced the high performance principles that were very simple, not simplistic, but certainly not easy. So some of those metrics might be, but I want you to push back to me and tell me there are better ones. The emails that you send to prospective clients and the follow-up. Once you send those emails or you make those phone calls, do you follow up and within a period of time, right? Sending personalized thank you cards and letters. How many of you do that? And how many of you, keep your hands up, how many of you send them to prospects? Put your hand down if you don't. How many of you call up or send a note to somebody and say, thank you for considering me. I know you went with somebody else, and you probably made the right decision for you, right? A lot of people think that's a waste of time, but it can be a great relationship builder. Again, this morning we talked about phone calls to old clients, to the people who probably are not going to do a transaction maybe 3-5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, but you nurture them and you nurture them, and those returns come and they come back fruitfully. But I was told that the luxury real estate industry is one where the agents want instant gratification, right? And that may be true because you kind of eat what you kill in this industry. But nurturing, it's true, it's a very Darwinian industry, right? However, can you do that? Can you create metrics so that you make sure you put on the calendar to follow up with existing clients and nurture them? So you can see number of errors per closing. You put that system in place for what a closing looks like, right? Different elements and different actions that you're going to take that make you special to that client. And then you measure how many errors did we make? What went wrong? And how do we anticipate that next time so it doesn't go wrong? And where do we need to customize because that person has special situations? They're older, they have kids, they're Chinese. They have a special situation. And then the number of what I call personalized welcome kits. How many of you send those? Right? Not that many, I'm surprised. Because as soon as you close my deal, the thing that I want to know is, where's the cleaners? Where's the police station? Where are the firemen? What kids should I send my kids to? But also, who are the handymen? Who are the people who are not going to rip me off? Who are the plumbers? Who are those essential people? And since you are a connector, I should be getting that list. Not some, packaged, canned list, but a very personalized list. I'm divorced, I'm single, I have a dog, I have a cat. All of those things that I think could personalize and truly position you as a relationship builder. When we work with clients, we've been able to increase the conversion rate by 40%. That's 40. And on some days, they increase their conversion rates by 80%. They almost double them. We had a client who had a 15% conversion rate. They went to 25, and now we said, well, why can't you go to 30? And because they went to 25, they don't look at us like we're from Mars. They said, you know what? We think we can. Or a client who had a retention rate, that is, they kept their clients, 50% increase in the retention rate, the number of people who repeat buy. And then, of course, for you, referrals are critical. So do you keep track of referrals? Do you know what if I said to you, what is your referral rate? That is the percentage of people who buy from you, either who recommend you because you requested it, and or because they volunteered because they love you so much. Do you know what that rate is? 100%. 100%? You're good. So when you are a high performer, you should know those stats for yourself. Whatever you choose as the success stats, you should be able to pound them off. Here's what we recommend, and it comes from surveys that we run with wealthy and affluent and uber wealthy consumers. When we ask them, what do you want from a sales professional in luxury, particularly service providers, they say, I want 3 things. Number one, I want them to be an expert at what they do and demonstrate that continuously and consistently. Number two, I need to trust them. In fact, when we ran a survey for NRT, confidentiality was number one, and I'm sure you know that, but also just a level of trust. I trust them because my home is such a critical asset. And number three was generosity. So when, what's your name? When you said that you wanted, you asked them, what's the one thing I could have done? Is that what you said?
Was there something we could have changed in your experience which would have been better?
Was there something we could have changed in your experience? Are you asking those kinds of questions? And are you keeping track? And are you able to use that as testimonials for people? Because those are wonderful testimonials. And by the way, suppose you had a bad experience. Suppose you, for whatever reason, something went wrong. So you get the feedback that, you know what, something went wrong. But I think they will respect you for having asked them. How? What could I have done better? Please be honest with me, because I do want to get better. That's the learning part. And no need to have fear, no need to have embarrassment. Imagine if you all had clickers, right? And I said to you, from 0 to 10, rate Milton Pedraza right up on the screen, and it would appear like a little graph for level of expertise, right? Now, you all have done that calculation already in your minds, haven't you? Or trustworthiness, or generosity. And by the way, it might be really painful to see what came up there, right? But it would be a tremendous learning experience for the next time. As embarrassing, as vulnerable as you are when you're naked up here, or when you're in front of your client and there's a $10 million property, or $5 million, $3 million property at stake, it will be a tremendous learning opportunity. And we recommend that you measure it and you keep track of it. And you share with your team how you can get better. And really have a little work session and brainstorm, how could we have done this better? Here's another one that, again, is kind of out there, but these days there are apps. There's little, you can go online or on the Apple Store, and you can get all kinds of little fun ways to, how many of you have teams or staffs? You have support, right? How many of you have more than one? Okay, so you have a team. These days in pharmaceuticals, in medicine, in aviation, companies are using quizzes, little reminders, ticklers that they send, like a little text that you get, in order to keep their teams on track and remind them of critical data that they can do or need to do in order to stay focused and stay on track. Now, it's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but the world is becoming far more metrics-oriented. We don't want to get crazy with metrics and measure your blood pressure every 10 seconds. However, there are reminders as technology can be fun. You can create contests. You can create a contest throughout the entire NRT network to see what agents really know the techniques, the procedures, the brand. And you can improve the performance as they do in schools all over the world by using these simple techniques. And again, simple, but not easy. And unfortunately, 99%, although they're best practices and they're proven empirically, 99% of the people will not use them. They'll think they're silly, they'll think they're ridiculous, when they could be tremendously helpful. And imagine if you could stack up those numbers and improve your conversion rate by 40 or 50%, improve your retention rate by 50%, and you see that stack up over the years in tremendous, tremendous revenue. Here I want to run a little video with Bill Gates, whom we all know, and Eric Schmidt, whom you may know less, but he's the CEO of Google.
Everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player. My bridge coach, Sharon Osberg, says there are more pictures of the back of her head than anyone else's in the world. Sorry, Sharon. Here you go. We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve.
Over the years, I've received so many different kinds of advice, I don't know where to start. One that comes to mind is to have a coach. Our board member in 2002, John Doerr, said, "You need a coach." And I said, "Well, I don't need a coach. I'm an established CEO. Why would I need a coach? Is something wrong?" He said, "No, you need a coach. Everybody needs a coach." So Bill Campbell became my coach and has served Google very well. Every famous athlete, every famous performer has somebody who's a coach, somebody who can watch what they're doing and say, is that what you really meant? Did you really do that? They can give them perspective. The one thing people are never good at is seeing themselves as others see them. A coach really, really helps.
Simple, right? How many of you have a coach or have tried a coach? Okay, and I know that the real estate industry is prevalent in that. I think there's a couple of recommendations I would make in getting a coach. Number one, that coach should have the expertise, the proven expertise that you want to get. Proven. Number two, that coach should be as trustworthy as you want to be to your clients. And number three, that coach should be generous. They must know how to give you feedback without offending you, and they have to be intelligent and generous and kind in giving that feedback. Firm, but generous and kind. That's the kind of coach you want. And also, that's the kind of coach you should be. The reason I gave you all those techniques, whether it's a checklist or the metrics or the feedback from your clients, is because when you don't have metrics, you cannot be a good coach. You can be a friend, you can compliment somebody, or you can say you're not doing a good job, but it's so much easier, so much more powerful for your teams and for you when you have metrics to demonstrate, especially in client relationship building, which we think is mushy, that yes, you know what, your conversion rate has increased, your retention rate has increased, your outreach rate has increased. All of those metrics make you a great coach, because now you can coach to something. And when we try to with sales forces and luxury brands, at first they rebel, but then they say, you know what, now I know what my job is. Now I can measure myself. Now I can see where I can improve. And then the managers say, now I can coach people in an intelligent way, and it's not personal, it's factual. I think that's a huge opportunity for you, whether it's because you get a coach, but most importantly because you can coach your people. A lot of the people this morning, the top agents said they had support team, support staff. And they said, you know, I'm so busy, you know, I take a lot of things for granted. If those top 34 from around the world could admit and agree that they could use some of these basics, that they could execute the fundamentals extraordinarily well, because you generally don't find that you find extraordinary things to do. There are no silver bullets. But executing those beautiful fundamentals, knowing what they are in relationship building, is one of the ways that you can improve performance dramatically and measurably. And if you try it out, please let me know. Dr. Atul Gawande has basically said that coaching, when it's done well, and that's a big caveat, is the most effective intervention designed for human performance, and that even the experts, and we have found that to be true, sometimes the top performers are the ones who benefit by doubling their revenues more than the average person, because they really know what to do with those best practices. And then finally, I have a recommendation that I heard this morning reiterated, and I had put it on the slide, but I didn't know quite how to really communicate it until I heard that group this morning. And it is that you are a connector. You are a potential connector in your community. Wherever you reside, you can be a massive connector, so that you can get referrals and give referrals to people who serve private aviation, jewelry, watches, handbags, any kind of provider to the luxury consumer, to the high net worth consumer. You can become the center of that little universe and generate a tremendous amount of referral and provide a tremendous amount of referral. The last recommendation is that you become the connector in your area. For the high net worth consumer, for all those who provide services, accountants, lawyers, you be the connector. You can be that connector, and you can measure that by the number of relationships, by the number of referrals, by the amount of good that you can create, which is measurable by creating all of these relationships and referrals. So when you're a relationship builder, it's not just with your clients. It's with those influencers as well as clients, in order to generate a tremendous amount of volume, probably double or triple your volume if you do that right. And then you won't just be a top performer, you'll be a peak performer. And you'll live your values, you'll be humanistic, but you'll also be a fantastic relationship builder. Well, what percentage of life do you think is luck versus skill? Just throw a number. How much is luck? 20? 70. So clearly there's some difference of opinion. So why don't we call it 50-50? Deal? And I would say this. You can't control the luck factors, right? The economy, the externalities. but you can't control that little bit, and that's your high performance. So I want to wish you the best of luck in this conference and in the rest of 2015. But because there is something under your control, and that's client relationship building, influencer relationship building, I want to wish you even greater skill than luck in 2015. And thank you, and I'll open it up to questions now, if you like.